Well, my plans for February kind of went off the rails, but let's just consider it a real-life plot twist. Remember in my February TBR video when I said, those are the books on my February TBR as options. I'm hoping I don't read them all. That's not something I am striving for. If I read them all, that means that I'm not balanced in other hobbies, in relationships, work. There's so much we all have going on. I don't want to be unbalanced and only reading this month. Well, I ended up reading a lot more than I had intended to, and I was not balanced in February. The things that took the hit were primarily my language studies, because I have a goal of studying Spanish and French 20 hours a month, and I came in under 12 hours, and also other activities, social activities, that kind of stuff. So it was not a balanced month, but there is a reason for this. I just really needed the mental break and the escape that reading provides. And I work in the tech industry, and if you've been following the news, you've seen there are massive layoffs going on in the industry, and I mean, my company is not immune to that. So pretty much in February, I was really insecure about my employment, and I love my job. I've been there for 11 years, so it was very high stress, but I think I'm okay now. And then I mentioned in other videos that I had a family medical emergency that took me out of the home. I was in the hospital a lot with my family. I was providing support and caregiving. So that was very stressful and, took me out of my normal routine, which then cascaded down to my 14-year-old German Shepherd dog who felt my stress, I think, and got really, really sick all over the house. Very smelly situation, very scary situation. All these three things combined just really stressed me out. So reading was my escape and how I dealt with a lot of this. My monthly rankings videos where I wrap up the books that I read in that month tend to get a decent amount of views. So I wanted to take this opportunity to share what happened this month because I think it's very, very important information. So in the month of February, my mother had a heart attack, which really surprised me because she's a little bit younger for what I picture being a heart attack patient. But the thing that really, really shocked me and what I wanted to share with you is that the symptoms of a heart attack are often very, very different in women than they are in men. And the only experience I have with heart attacks, luckily, is on TV. And I always picture like the pain in the left arm and the left side and like this massive attack, right? Like that's what I picture a heart attack. But the symptoms can be very different, and particularly in women. So my mom's symptoms were over the course of several days. She had chest pain that was very, very sharp. She had pain in her neck and her back in between her shoulder blades. She was dizzy, she was nauseous, she was throwing up a lot. So I wanted to share that, not to put my mom's personal medical history on blast, but because the symptoms are so very important because we didn't realize that's what was going on. And I think that people might wait longer than necessary because they think it's something they should just, ride out, some kind of flu or something, but it was a heart attack. It was a very severe heart attack. And, she's doing better now, still not out of the woods, but working on it. So that's what really stressed me out this month because I love my mom and she's very important to me. So this was very scary, but I wanted to share those symptoms with you so that you're aware. Another way this has impacted me is I am super motivated right now to eat healthy, to be more active, and to just make better lifestyle choices to control what I can control. And so in my vlogs, I always talk about how I want to show you the bookworm lifestyle. And I think that lifestyle is going to include more activity. There's already more dog walks included. There's going to be elliptical, there's going to be weight training and yoga. So many more things because it motivates me to live healthy, and that's what I'm going to be doing. Thank goodness for audiobooks, am I right? Hopefully you got something out of me sharing that really personal information, but I want to move on to something more positive now and talk about the books that I read in the month of February. As always, in my monthly ranking videos, I am going to rank these in order of my least favorite to my most favorite, and breaking them down into 3 categories: books that I disliked, liked, and loved. But first and foremost, I want to cover the books that are outside of these rankings. First of all, my in-progress reads, Anna Karenina, and I started this in late January. I am still in progress with it though, because I needed an escape this month. It's not that it's necessarily heavy, but it's about family life. It's like real life situations, and I needed something more fantastical. So I read a lot more fantasy-ish books this month because I needed the escape, and I'm not gonna put myself under pressure with all the other pressure I had going on. So this one is still in the works. I have a reading vlog that's turning out super cute, by the way. So hopefully I can finish this and then share that vlog in the month of March. I also said that my language studies were the area of my life to take a huge hit in February, so that means that I'm still in progress with my Spanish book that I'm reading to work on my language skills. This is the one that has 30 short stories in Spanish, and oh my gosh, it is incredibly dull and boring. It's painful to get through, but it doesn't need to be super engaging, right? I'm not in it for the plot, I'm in it for the language practice. So still in progress. I didn't want to force myself to expend the brain power. So this, hopefully I will finish in March and then hopefully read another one. So still be on track to read 1 language book a month, but we'll see. There is only 1 book in the disliked category for the month of February, and that is The Death of Jane Lawrence. I read this as part of a book review video I did reading the best and worst rated books on my GoodReads TBR, and this was rated as the worst. So I guess all the writing was on the wall for me not enjoying this book, but it was still on my TBR for a reason, and that reason was because it was supposed to be a mashup of like Rebecca and Jane Eyre, which, I mean, those are buzzwords for me, so I really wanted to pick it up because it's a horror. I heard it was really spooky, wanted to check it out, but I ended up really agreeing with a lot of the ratings that I went through, a lot of the reviews that I read to see why it was so poorly rated. So it was just weird and nonsensical, but it was a fun journey. So check out that video. I will link it for you so you can check out more about the plot of this book and really what made it weird and why it landed in the dislike category. Now for the liked category. And I guess the book that I liked the least, because it's lowest on this ranking, was on my Kindle. I read this from Kindle Unlimited, and it is all 4 books currently published in the Plated Prisoner series. I have been dying to read this. It has been on my Kindle TBR for the longest time. It is a Midas-inspired dark fantasy romance. So this was really fun. It really hit the mood that I was looking for this month with that fantasy distraction. So I gotta give it props for that because it definitely distracted me with this magical world and this Midas's touch that turns everything to gold, and his gold-touched favored that he keeps as his prisoner, and her finding herself and her strength and finding her own way and learning that she probably has Stockholm syndrome. It was an entertaining read. I had some gripes with it though. I did an entire reading vlog on it, which actually turned out really cute because I tried to theme a lot of activities around like gold. See, I'm even wearing my gold earrings again because of that experience. But it turned out really fun with all the footage that I was able to capture this month. I'm really proud of that video. So if you're interested more in the plot of this series, my reactions, my opinions, then please check that out. I will link it for you in the cards up above and down below. A book that I enjoyed a lot more than the Plated Prisoner series was A Soul to Keep, which I read on Kindle Unlimited. I read this because my cousin recommended it to me. She said it was a very weird monster romance with a lot of spice. It's a very smutty book. So I thought this would be a great distraction this month, and it was interesting. Okay, first and foremost, my cousin warned me that the writing style is pretty bad. So you have to go into it with that expectation. And for example, this author loves exclamation marks. They were all over the page like the chicken pox. It was laughable. It was really funny how much punctuation there was all over the place. And this book was super long. I think it's over 500 pages, and the plot suffered at times because so many different things were happening, but it was a lot of fun and it was a well done plot. So we follow this girl who is 26 years old, I believe, and she does not live a good life in her village. The villagers are very scared of her. They think that she brings bad omens and she attracts demons. So they want to sacrifice her, but she has to go willingly. So that's interesting how they convince her to consent to this. She has to consent to being a Duskwalker's bride. So she is sacrificed and she is terrified. She doesn't know what this means to be his bride. Like, is he going to eat her, torture her? What is she expected to do? So she's a little bit scared, but she doesn't show it. And what intrigues the Duskwalker is that he can smell fear, and he doesn't smell fear coming from her. She's very spunky and witty and confident, I guess. So I liked that in her. And he turns out to be just like a big puppy dog that just wants to take care of her. So there's a lot of the like caregiving trope in this, as he takes care of her and bends over backwards to fulfill her wishes. And she starts to realize she's a little bit attracted to this monster thing. So it really poses some questions to you with a spin of Beauty and the Beast, which did make an appearance, by the way. The book, the story Beauty and the Beast, made a cameo in this, so that was kind of fun. But I liked all the magic in this, the different creatures, the different protections, and how things operated. This was a really good time, and the spice was so weird. It was so weird. But you know what, there was a good balance. I need lots of plot with my spice and smut, and it was a perfect balance for me. So we had really weird smut because he doesn't have anatomy of a human. There's like tentacles involved and he's purple there. So it was weird. It was really weird. But you know what? It's just another kind of fantasy, right? Like, it's just something that's different. And I had a great time with this book. I really enjoyed it and it was a great escape. Now for a really awkward transition into the book that I enjoyed a little bit more than that monster of smutty romance is the historical fiction epic. I think it's a new classic, The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. I wanted to read this in Black History Month as it follows several generations of one family, all females, pretty much, follows them from slavery and the Civil War up into present day. And in the present day, we have three sisters that are growing up and they're falling in love, falling out of love, living the Southern family life, which I learned a lot about. And I read this as part of my video reading the best and worst rated books on my GoodReads TBR. This was the best rated, and I can absolutely see why. This was very powerful. This was a very ambitious book. It accomplished a lot, and I'm left feeling like I have lived another life because I was so connected to these characters. I learned so much, and I expected to learn a lot about Black history and Black issues, like in the present day, and I did, but it was not a book that preached it to me. It was just a very real approach to American history and Black struggles, and I really enjoyed this book. So if you want to see more about the plot and my thoughts, please check out that video where I reviewed this, but I did really enjoy this book. The book that I liked the most in February was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And this is a contemporary romance. I have seen it all over the place, all over BookTube. Very highly rated. It's described as a very mature romance. And I read this as part of the video I did, a weekly reading vlog where Instagram voted and picked my reads, and this is one of them that they picked. So I will link that video for you so you can check that out in more detail. I do talk more about the plot, things I liked, things that kept this from being in the loved category as well. But I love books about books and books about book lovers, and I love hearing their appreciation for literature, and this really delivered in those aspects. Now, it's not entirely a contemporary romance. There is also a sister relationship that is very important, and honestly it's probably as much in the forefront as the romance is. So bad reviews I've seen on this is that they weren't expecting that sister aspect, right? So I think if you go into it with those expectations, then you'll be happy. But it's about a career-driven woman who goes on a getaway with her pregnant sister, kind of like a last hurrah before the new baby is born, and reconnect and bond because her sister's been a little bit distant lately. And she is very career-driven. She's known as like an ice queen because she's very good at her job, but she's very direct, very blunt, gets to the point. And while they're on the vacation, she runs into not her competition, not an enemy, but not a rival, not a workplace rival, but they don't necessarily get along. So it has a little bit of that enemies to lovers kind of a vibe because they do not get along at first. But as you can imagine, they start to. So great banter, great time. I liked this book the most in the month of February. Now for the books that I loved in the month of February. As part of the video I was telling you about where I did a weekly reading vlog, reading the books that my Instagram friends voted on, I read the horror book, Mary. Oh my gosh, this was so good. It was kind of pitched to me as a Carrie by Stephen King inspired tale if Carrie was a 50-something-year-old pre-menopausal woman. But it was so much more than that. It was so incredible. It was so smart, it was profound, it was grotesque, it was chilling, it was all these things. So Mary is used to being unseen, being ignored. As a woman that's getting up there in her years, past being a lover, mother, all of that, she is just used to not really being noticed. And so when she starts developing these really weird symptoms, such as she can't look at herself in the mirror, she can't look at her reflection because she sees a decaying, gross face, and she starts seeing other things as well. And she goes to the doctor and she tries to explain all these symptoms. And he's like, well, it's just menopause. This is all normal. This is all expected, and like brushes her off. That's a very real issue, and so I think that's what made this like extra chilling and haunting to me. Wow, this was good. It was scary. It wasn't necessarily like jump scare, at least in my opinion. Okay, there were some jump things. There was an animal death that disgusted me, but I mean the author warned us in the author's note in the beginning of that animal death, but it was just grotesque and gory. So I think that's the kind of horror that this would fall into. But this was a really good time. Please check out that video. I will link it for you so you can check out more details on the plot. But I loved Mary. Mary was so good. Now for the book that I loved the most, my favorite read in February 2023, and that is Archer's Voice. This is really interesting because I put this on the poll for the weekly reading vlog where Instagram picks my reads, and this one lost. But I read it anyways because I got my hold available on Libby, and I'd been waiting since August 2022. That's how long the wait list was for this audio. But I listened to it, I ate it up, I adored it. I read it all in one day. And so I knew I had to purchase it to add it to my collection because it was so good. This has amazing small town vibes. I want to leave everything behind now and move to a small town. Like, that's how much I love small town. I need to convince my boyfriend to do that. I don't know if he'd be on board, but I think the dogs would love it. My employer might not. Okay, I need to figure out some things, but new life goals, I want to live in a small town. This is about our main character who, something happened, something tragic happens, and she moves to a small town in Maine, I believe. I like that there's like a lake. There's a lake, but it also gets cold there. And she is not necessarily starting over. She's like on this journey where she may just travel around, and like this is like the first stop. So she's not planning on staying there to start over. She just needs to get away, escape some memories. So she's there, and she runs into, quite literally, someone who lives there named Archer Hale. And at first she's all nervous because she literally ran into him. She's rambling, she's apologizing, and she's kind of offended that like he's not saying anything back to her. He's not saying like, oh, it's okay or whatever. And so she starts asking some questions about him. And as you know, in a small town, everybody knows everybody, which I kind of like. I'm sure that would bug me in reality, but the idea of it's really fun. And she learns more about him, and she learns that he can't speak. There was an accident when he was a kid and he can no longer speak. And so there's that. She's like, okay, this makes sense. And so she's trying to like be his friend, but he is super grumpy and like doesn't want friends. So there's like a grumpy sunshine element to it, but she breaks it down. And you know, that was one thing I'd call out in this book is I don't know if that's love at first sight or obsession at first sight, but I don't know why she was trying so hard to be his friend when he was kept saying like, no, I don't want to be friends. That's maybe one critique on the book. I wish something brought them together more at the same time versus like her pushing so hard to woo him into being friends. But I can forgive that because I loved everything else about this. And I guess it would be a disability rep that he can't speak, and they actually speak sign language to each other. And he just has so many anxieties, you know, since the car accident that caused him to lose his voice. He hasn't been in a car since. He doesn't really leave his house except for to go like to the market or the grocery store to get food. And so he just lives, he's a hermit. He kind of stays off to himself. And it's really a story of her helping him find himself, trusting people, opening up to people. And his character growth was just so amazing. He is such a gentle, kind character, and I don't see him as weak at all. I see him as very strong, and I loved watching their bond form and how protective she was of him, even just like he was protective of her. But gosh, there was just so much I loved about this book. I really loved this journey. It made me feel so good, so comforted, and I really love those small town vibes. So Archer's Voice, this contemporary romance, was my favorite read in the month of February. Those are the books that I read in the month of February, the ones that helped me escape real life, even if for a little bit. If you have made it to this point in the video, can you please drop a heart emoji in the comments down below? It can be any color you want, but in honor of my mama and what she went through this month, I think the heart emoji is very appropriate. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Again, reading provided me a great distraction this month when I really, really needed it. And BookTube also provides me a great distraction. I've watched so many videos this month, and everybody's enjoyment of reading really helped me get through things. Like the positivity just really helped me hang on. So if you are a creator, or if you just comment on my videos and interact with me, thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for me. And thanks for watching this video. I will see you in the next one.